Two of my favorite questions so far are coming from a guy named Charles Manson in our chat room. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means anything, but it's worth mentioning. His first question was, do you really think that American electoral politics provides an environment conducive to anti-capitalist politics?
I'll tackle it. Sure, why not? I mean, does any electoral system, I just don't really buy that framework. Mass mobilization and organization. By organizing, you'll open up pockets to create that kind of space.
Okay.
But as I said before, it's going to take work to open those kinds of bubbles and those pockets to rip the party apart. And, we were talking about the generational shifts earlier. When you're looking at a state like New York, where Bernie Sanders is winning over 80%, or Michigan, 86%, Wisconsin in the 80s, the Democratic Party could be a socialist party just based on demographics and this shift alone. But at the same time, it's going to take a lot of work and organization because obviously there's going to be a ton of pushback.
Mm-hmm. So you're rejecting the underlying the entire framework because electoral politics at its core is about organizing in numbers and the ability to organize to demand that kind of change. All right, I like that. Emily, did you have anything on that? Because I have another question here from Charles Manson.
Well, I just wanted to say real quick that I think like the view that we can only achieve change through electoral politics, I think is really limiting. Yeah. And so I think like leftists in general sort of need to let themselves out of this box that we can only get anything done by like winning the presidency. There are so many other routes, and one of those is labor organizing, which the DSA does wonders on. So like let go of this idea that like we need to win every office, find the other routes.
I heard about.
And by
Italy.
can I jump in on this real fast?
Go ahead.
So I'm a labor organizer, and within labor organizing, you're really impacting lives in ways that elections can't even impact lives. So right now we're working for 15 in the union, and the union being the emphasis, but the 15 at the same time, and things like paid sick leave. We're making improvements for tens, hundreds of thousands of people's lives, and those are real wins outside of elections. And I think for leftists, just going into electoral politics, if you don't have the numbers and it's, you're not really invested, it can be a trap. And mobilizing outside of electoral politics, you can still make big wins. And when you're getting those big wins, you're, activating tens of thousands of people. And maybe out of those tens of thousands, maybe 1,000 will join DSA. And that 1,000, who knows what they can do. But as I was saying, just the bubbles in the pockets outside of electoral politics can rip open, things that weren't even imaginable.
Wow. I heard about you too. I heard about Emily and I heard about Larry, and you guys are not disappointing, man. Your reputations are being upheld on this show right here. So last question from Charles Manson. Again, it's a great question, so I have to give him a shout out on his name. Given the privileged position of even the American working class relative to the rest of the world, how can you sell socialism to the American public who benefit from third world labor? And I want to add to it, how can you actually sell it to them when it is going to inevitably cause a strain? So not just on the working class, right? But let's talk about the middle class, the upper middle class. Moving towards socialism not only exposes the reality that we are exploiting third world labor, but it also means that some of the luxuries and some of the structures that we are so comfortable with are going to be done away with. How can we convince the middle class and the working class to let go of the luxuries that come from third world labor that will inevitably hurt, cause us some pain, even if it's only temporary?
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit. So, so for example, the CWA strikes that happened in the Northeast, it's not only national organizing, they do international organizing as well. So when they were threatening to move jobs overseas, CWA sent representatives to, I can't remember the country right now, but also to do organizing there. So not only did CWA win the strike here, they also won benefits. I think it's Indonesia, but you don't quote me on that.
Mm-hmm.
But they went there and, you know, they won benefits for Indonesian workers. So it's not, you know, it's more international organizing than just national organizing.
Okay.
Even SEIU does international organizing. It's not like, you know, we're just mobilizing people here and everybody else can, you know, do whatever. We're mobilizing the working class in other countries and making sure that, you know, we're not screwing their workers and vice versa here, and just being on the same page as labor in both countries.
Yeah.
So pushing back against ownership, no matter where it is in the globe.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
Emily,
and I think
I feel
to
like
speak
you
to
have
this
something to
idea
say
of
there.
like the yeah, but to speak to this idea of like the third world luxuries, I think the people that actually, you know, benefit from, you know, the most from, you know, exploited labor overseas are actually a really small segment of the population. So, you know, most of this outsourced labor that could be brought back home wouldn't actually, you know, up the price that drastically. Like there was this really douchey article about a restaurant chain in Oregon that was, you know, upping the price of, you know, hamburgers or whatever, and they were including that because, you know, they have to pay their employees a living wage. And it was like a cent, right? So it's like you've got a $50 meal and you're paying 1 cent extra. So, you know, some woman can go home and like actually feed her kids. So I think like the marginal impacts of like bringing non-exploitative labor home, I think isn't really as like earth-shattering as people want to believe it is. And I think like in the end, you know, if we get rid of things like the kafala system in the Gulf states, or just general slave labor in India, you know, not only will Americans and like working class Americans included benefit, but also like globally, things will get better.
Yeah. Yeah.